This is episode 158 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 158 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Jack Bernstein on the show, and Jack was a really interesting guest. We spent a lot of this episode just talking about mindset and thinking bigger, as well as all the different things that Jack is up to. So Jack's a very successful investor. He has investments in Owen Sound, in Oakville, in Blue Mountain area. And he talks a lot about how he's able to generate cash flow, how he was able to make some smart plays, and how he's able to implement the house hacking strategy in the Blue Mountain area for extreme profit and a free place to stay when he's up there. So Jack actually had Olympic aspirations as a snowboarder early on, and that led him down a path where he got injured and started a company due to his injury because he had some time on his hands, and he actually sold that company to a venture capitalist firm 5 years later. So he brings a lot of experience to this episode as a 5-year entrepreneurial veteran who is now a real estate investor and is bringing some of that big thinking and experience to this game. And it was a really interesting opportunity to talk to him, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode. Just before we jump in, as always, I ask you to please take a moment to rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars would be greatly appreciated. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and leave me a comment below, just so we can help more people find this show and get that algorithm working. If you'd like to grab a copy of my cash flow analyzer spreadsheet, you can do so on my website at andrew-hines.com and just click cash flow on the menu bar. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into episode 158 with Jack Bernstein. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Jack Bernstein on the show. Jack, how you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be on the show. Long-time listener.
Oh, great, man. Yeah. If you don't mind, Jack, first off, how did we set this up? Because I booked 15 different podcasts all at the same time. So some of them blend together.
Yeah. Mark Smith had a nice introduction for me. Over to you. I mentioned that it was something that, was a goal of mine to do and kind of get on the show, and he kind of made it happen with the introduction. So I appreciate it. Okay,
awesome. And if you don't mind, can you give me a little bit of your backstory, what type of real estate you're into and how you got there?
Yeah, sure. So I've been investing in multifamily for probably, I would say 2 to 2.5 years now. So mostly, smaller multifamily, duplex, triplex, quadplex, things like that. But, the hope is to kind of grow to that a little bit. And, I'm having some constraints that, most people have with mortgage qualifications and things like that. So probably going to start looking at, some small rise multifamily now.
Whereabouts are you doing this?
Yeah, so it's funny. So I started in Oakville, quickly got priced out of that market, moved towards Hamilton, quickly got priced out of that market, and moved to Brantford. Same thing kind of happened. And then now I'm in Collingwood, Owen Sound, Barrie. So, markets that I would consider kind of tier 2 or tier 3, but with the pandemic, they kind of all became tier 2 markets with people moving around. So, Golden Horseshoe and above. Okay.
And you live where?
I'm in Oakville.
Oh, okay. You're in Oakville. I was going to ask, why Oakville?
Yeah. So I grew up in Port Credit. So
it
was a natural, it's a 10-minute drive from where I grew up. So, it was Port Credit's, probably one of the most expensive postal codes, in the GTA. So it wasn't necessarily feasible to move there right away. However, the hope is that one day head back there.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. So just walk me through the Oakville thing. Like, when did that happen? When did you buy in Oakville?
Yeah. So in 2018, I was renting a house in Port Credit for my grandmother with my dad and my brother, and she had let me know that she was going to sell the house. So I kind of came at a crossroads. I was 26, and it was either, go rent or figure out a way to make it happen and get my first property down. So I got the idea from my grandfather to, try to find a house that would be an easy duplex conversion. So hit the market looking and found one in Oakville, semi-detached house that, already had separate entrance and, had good ceiling height and, electrical and things like that were all kind of in line. So took a stab at that and, kind of made the deal happen, scraped, the money together to make it happen. and went through the process of doing the duplex conversion, which was, you know, a pretty heavy learning experience at the time because I didn't have too much experience with real estate or, you know, construction or anything. Originally, I had budgeted like 30 or 35,000 in 3 months, and obviously it ended up being, you know, 2 to 3 times that cost and 2 to 3 times that timeline.
Oh, okay. And did the numbers end up working out for you at the end of it? Like, were you able? Can you give me an idea of what those numbers look like?
Yeah, so it worked out pretty good. So I bought the place from a distressed seller, so it was a power of attorney sale. So it was someone whose family was selling off their assets, and it was their lawyer selling off the assets for them, and it was the last property in the portfolio that they needed to be gone. So, you know, it was listed at 750, and I ended up closing it at 640.
Okay.
And, you know, I ended up having to put around 75K into it. When I refinanced it 12 months later, ended up refinancing at the time for, you know, 8 to 850. But, you know, now it's probably worth 1.1 to 1.2.
And it's just like your typical bungalow, like you'd see in Hamilton, people converting, or is it a little bit fancier than that?
Yeah, it's a little bit fancier than that. Like I would say each unit, you know, is about 1,700 square feet, but the lower level unit has street level access. So it's above ground.
Oh, okay.
So
That's really nice.
yeah, so it's got natural, you know, light, and it doesn't feel like it's a lower level unit or a basement unit at all. So, you know, that was pretty attractive. And I ended up getting a tenant, you know, back in 2018 to pay $2,000 a month for it. Still have that tenant today, you know, steady rent increases since, and never had an issue with them.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, so maybe a little tangent, but what are your thoughts on Airbnb-ing a unit like that in a place like Oakville?
You know what? I think there's huge potential for it. Every once in a while, I'll go on AirDNA or kind of go look around and, you know, see what things are renting out for. And believe it or not, you know, around my area, there's some like $4 or $5 million mansions that have sheds in the backyard that have been converted to Airbnb locations that they're renting out for like $300 or $400 a night.
Like just basically illegal stuff just in the backyard, rented out on Airbnb.
Yeah, like some of them don't even have a washroom in them.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, so my wife and I are looking to move out to the country, and you know, we'd have some land, and we're just kind of thinking, well, what if we were to put some yurts in the backyard or something, like far enough away from the house that it wouldn't bother us. The only thing is, yeah, with that kind of thing, you got to have a place for them to use the washroom and stuff. Like, what are those places doing? Are those all properly hooked up, or do they just have some sort of solution for that?
I would say some of them are, you know, it's probably 10% of them that aren't. A lot of them look like they've actually, you know, professionally done them, but, you know, I would say most of them are probably illegal dwellings or illegal structures that people put up. But one thing that's interesting, I did notice, is that there's a lot of people in Oakville who have trailers or, you know, mobile homes that they're Airbnb-ing in their driveways as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I just feel like markets like that, there's not a whole lot going on for hotels. I feel like oddly, like even in Burlington, just from, you know, people I know who have units, like you get tenants like pretty consistently too. So it's interesting, and you wouldn't necessarily think so because they're just kind of small bedroom towns that don't do too much. But here we are.
Well, so yeah, Oakville's got an interesting dynamic now because it's got you know, Sheridan College, which is, you know, really, really blown up. And there's a lot of students that are kind of without housing. They don't have a really big infrastructure for housing there. So a lot of them are looking for short-term placements, whether it's through Airbnb or it's through short-term rentals and things like that. And they're willing to pay a huge premium.
Right. Like what could you get from a student? Like in London, students are paying like, you know, $800 a bedroom on the high end. What are they paying?
So some of them are, you know, I've seen ads up for like 13 or $1,400 and just for bedroom and shared space with, you know, people they don't know. And I wouldn't say these are fully renovated units either. You know, these are things that are probably dated back to early 2000s or sometimes even late 90s on them. But, you know, once again, it's just, there's a supply and demand thing. You know, in the area, I noticed Starlight has 5 student condos going up right now for short-term rentals and for long-term rentals as well too. So, you know, people are recognizing the demand and trying to fix the problem with supply. But as of right now, you know, you can charge exorbitant prices for Airbnb and things like that.
Yeah, might as well get in while the getting's good, and then convert back to normal when when it doesn't make sense anymore. So are you thinking about doing that?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm planning on moving out of this place within the next 12 to 24 months. I don't think I'll ever sell it. I think that's exactly what I'll do for the unit that I'm living in now. So, I'm house hacking the top unit, and I think it'll create some great short-term cash flow. The lower unit, comes pretty close to carrying the whole place. So it wouldn't really take much to be cash flow positive on it. But that being said, I would love to replicate, what I did here in Oakville. However, the prices over the past 36 months have just not made it really feasible, just like everywhere else in the GTA.
Yeah, it's so annoying, huh? Like I just consider the housing like inflation price, like I just consider that annoying. A lot of people have made a lot of money and I've made money from it too. But it's just like it screws with your business. Like, I want to keep doing what's working. Oh wait, I can't.
Well, that's exactly going back to, when you were asking about what market I was in. So my first investment property above and beyond this one that I went to was Hamilton. And, once I got 2 properties under my belt there, I was thinking, okay, you know what? Prices are going up. I'll go to Brantford. And I waited 3 or 4 or 5 months. And by the time I had, taken a hard stab at Brantford, the prices were almost the same as Hamilton. Mm. So, it's just pushing out very quickly. But that being said, there's still opportunities there. The opportunities are harder to find, but there's definitely still opportunity.
And I'm glad you said that, because I believe no matter what, there's an opportunity within 500 meters of your house. You just got to know how to see it. That's really the question. Like, are you skilled enough, or have you educated yourself enough to see it? Of course, a lot of us will spread, and there's nothing wrong with that because there's easier opportunities in other markets. But there's not, I guess the nice way of looking at it is that there's nothing that will stop someone who's determined.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when we look at immigration and, our current macroeconomic policy with the government, there's no real solution to fix the supply problem right now. However, there's, huge immigration inflowing. Mm-hmm. So I think, in the long term, I'm very bullish on real estate over the next couple of years, even depending on, I don't really think if interest rates went up to 3 to 3.5%, it would make that much of a difference with the people that are coming into the country and the amount of money they're bringing.
What's your background? Did you study economics?
So my background was a little bit different. I had a unique approach. So in high school, I actually joined a professional snowboarding team, which was, kind of like a coaching program. We actually had a show on Disney called Shreducation. So I did that and did the whole professional snowboarding thing for about 10 years and, had some of the biggest sponsors in the world. And then when I was 18 or 19, instead of going to post-secondary, I actually moved to Whistler and was chasing the Olympic dream and kind of doing that whole thing. And I actually broke my back and ended up coming back to Mississauga, where I lived at the time, to recover. And while I was doing that, I kind of stumbled upon an idea. I was at a bar one night with a friend, and I had a call with one of my snowboard sponsors. And I asked the bartender if she could charge my phone, and she couldn't. So I literally had to leave the bar with 3 or 4 of my friends. And as I left, I kind of thought, you know what, like they probably lost a couple $100 of revenue, just because my phone died from us being there all night. So I had a friend's father who's an electrical engineer, and I had this idea to create a cell phone charging station for restaurants and bars that they could have digital advertisements on and things like that. And because I had nothing to do and I was recovering from my snowboarding injury, I ended up kind of making a pitch deck and a prototype and things like that. And I raised just over $1 million in seed capital for it. So, as that happened, I slowly transitioned out of snowboarding, and I had that company for about 5 years and grew it to about 12 employees, and then took some investment from a venture capital firm that had a really cool concept. What they wanted to do was they wanted to bring 5 different startups under one roof in like a 30,000 square foot office and have shared services. So shared accounting, shared picking and packing, shared customer service and things like that. So you could operate as a really large business with low expenditures. And, the business kind of came to a critical junction where, we needed to create the next evolution of the product. And it was probably going to take, $5 to $6 million. And for us to raise that in Canada isn't feasible, where competitors in the US were raising 15 or 20 million, in US funds. So at that point, it made sense for me to kind of part ways with the business. The VC firm kind of took over the shares of the company from me, and I had a little exit, which was nice from it. And then they kept running with the company because 85% of the infrastructure was already under the roof. So it was a really good synergy for them to take it. But, when that happened, that gave me a lot of life experiences from running a company for 5 years. But I got to learn a lot of the complexities and the differences between Canada and the US. So it's just like the same thing. If someone scales a real estate portfolio here to 10 properties in the same time in the US, you could probably do it to 50 or 100. And it goes the same thing with, raising any venture capital money or seed money or anything like that for startups. The US just has so much more power and people are so much more aggressive in investing. And I guess most of it just comes down to, a lot of their tax code. They can take losses and write off the whole thing. And we just can't do that here. So people don't get as aggressive with their investments.
Oh, you're saying on the losses here, on the losses, you can carry it forward as a capital loss, right? Like it won't count against your active income, but it'll be against capital loss, capital gain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. In the US, there's other incentives for them to do it too. They could write off the whole portion of it as opposed to 50% of it. And then there's other incentives and things like that where they can get back. So, it just creates a culture where it's more business friendly and they're more willing to take higher risks than, I would say Canadians are.
Dude, if you wrote a book, I would read it. You should definitely write a book about that. Have you already?
No. It, I would say when I reflect on my path, I took an obviously very unique path as opposed to like most of my friends who graduated, went to post-secondary, kind of got their corporate job and then, still chugging away at that. I was lucky. I still got, I would say, to have all the experiences all my friends did, if not more. But, the whole business aspect, which my grandmother calls, street school or my street MBA, really set the foundations for understanding how kind of real estate works and helping kind of scale that portion of it quickly. And yeah, I think that, all kind of makes who someone is, right? The things that happen to them.
I think that the nice thing that you had going for you is that you didn't go to school. I mean, school gives a lot of knowledge per se, but it doesn't give doing. And then depending on what you study, if you don't study commerce, economics, business admin or whatever, like it just ends up putting a lot of ideas that are not helpful in people's heads. So with what you've done, you basically skipped all that crap and went straight to the doing, because everything in your whole career had been doing, right? Going after the Olympics. And then, I got to do something else when you can't go snowboarding. And there you are running a business. That's incredible. Most people would get that idea and be like, nah, you know what? There's just too many people that could also do this. And they just stomp me out real quick. Like, what gave you that confidence to know? Because I've had a lot of this type of idea and just like, like other people have better capabilities than I do to bring it to market. So what gave you that confidence to just do it?
I would say one thing I've been fortunate with is I have a lot of ambition and I have drive. So if I have an idea, like I'm willing to try to do whatever I can to execute on it. I know what my strong suits are and what they're not, like the attention to detail in some things, the administrative side and things like that aren't my strong suit. So, I like going after the big picture. And I sometimes feel that, if you can portray the big picture in a certain way, you can get things off the ground pretty quickly and figure out the rest of it as you go. And typically when you're building a business, and especially when you're in the tech space, the critical components of the business within the first 6 to 12 months are how can you sell the big picture of the idea to get the funds to take it off the ground. So that's kind of where, I found the benefit really was. And that kind of, goes over to real estate too. It's the same thing. Once you learn the skill of being able to kind of raise money and have those conversations and things like that, when you have private lending conversations, or you're talking about JVs and bringing partners and stuff, a lot of the information and skill set transfers over. And I, background too, like I have a corporate job as well too. So I sell enterprise software to large businesses. So I'm on sales as well.
Is that something you're working to transition out of? Because I never really asked you, like, what's your goal with all this? You're obviously acquiring quite a bit of real estate. Are you planning on taking that as to a full-time gig at some point, or are you going to stick with what you're doing for the full-time job and just keep this as investment?
Yeah, so the goal is definitely to transition out of it at some point. Anybody who is in software sales, understands that it's kind of like the dream job where it's in between being an entrepreneur and being on your own, and then also still being in the corporate world. I can go 2 or 3 weeks at a time without talking to my boss. I kind of run my own little business. But at the same time, when you have your mindset on something, you need to have your mindset dedicated to whatever business you're building. And what I find is a little bit challenging is, being in the mindset for one thing and then having to switch back and forth all the time. It's a little bit distracting. So, at some point I'll do it. However, I always tell people that are first getting into real estate and, want to get their first place, the best job to be in is software sales. Most people their first year make over 6 figures, and you pretty much always work remote and make your own schedule.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah. The lower accountability is key, right? I love sales jobs for that, because you get what you earn. And I think that's actually instilling a really strong lesson in people's minds too. Knowing that, what, I really did earn this. I really did create value, and that's why I'm getting paid.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, sales is, great when it's good and it's awful when it's bad.
Yeah.
So, there's pros and cons to it as well too. And it does carry a fair bit of stress. But, you get compensated for that.
But in your case, you're doing it right, where you have, I'm assuming, some fallback with your real estate portfolio, some cash there that you could draw on if you needed to. So it's not like if you had a bad sales year, that's going to break you. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. So something really cool just, happened to me last week. I was basically running all the numbers on, all the investments that I have in the properties and what my whole monthly cost is for my whole lifestyle. And I pretty much passed the break-even point where if I quit my corporate job, I could sustain the same lifestyle, all my costs with a nice buffer room and be able to kind of transition out. However, I still think I'll probably ride it out for another 12 or 24 months on the corporate side. But yeah, I think I'm probably at that point now, which is a nice feeling, because I didn't grow up in a family with a lot of money. There's, financial constraints and financial mismanagement. So that was always a big goal of mine.
It's pretty awesome that you're able to, shake that off, right? Like, you not repeat the footsteps. I don't know if you've ever read The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. T. Harv Eker, he talks about how you have like a financial thermostat that's sort of set by your parents. And if they had like a thermostat set to like 70,000, like if they have one year that they earn 80, the next year they're in 60. So they come back to equilibrium. So the whole idea of the apple falling not far from the tree, when somebody goes outside of that, it's like they had to consciously acknowledge it and consciously analyze and decide to do different, which it sounds like you've done. So that's really cool. Sorry for the long story.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And yeah, that was the thing. Like, I would say my family was an interesting situation where they didn't have a lot of money, but they still had some. It wasn't like they're making minimum wage or anything like that. But where the downfall came was the financial mismanagement. So overburdening on debt, incurring the wrong kind of debt, spending more than they made and things like that. And, that was a conscious decision I had always made from a young point when I saw the stresses that incurred, that, that was something that's avoidable. So from a young age, I kind of put myself in the mindset of, okay, we got to make the appropriate adjustments here to be able to not go down that path.
Okay. So you got another probably year or two, you figure, and then you're full-time into real estate. Tell me about what you have in, well, we'll start with Owen Sound, because I like that town.
Yeah, Owen Sound, I would say, is a fantastic market right now. I feel like it's a market that not a lot of people are talking about. You can find, okay and decent 4.5 caps on market. You can buy properties cash flowing, and a lot of them are good older homes with solid bones on them. So I just picked up a triplex there. I locked up another quadplex there, which I should be closing on around March. But that was a market, that I kind of came to because of Collingwood. So because of snowboarding, I spent a lot of time in Collingwood, and I'd always known about Owen Sound. And when I was looking at, kind of B and C markets and running numbers, it seemed to be a place that a lot of investors weren't giving a lot of attention to.
So you're saying for people who are going to Blue Mountain, they could stay in Owen Sound?
I wouldn't say staying in Owen Sound, but because of my familiarity with Collingwood and Owen Sound, I was familiar with the market.
Gotcha. Yeah. What do you think the draw is there? Because I think the other side of Blue Mountain was that that little town in between. What's that town called? Just
Thornbury.
another name, but it's on the way to Owen Sound. I thought there was another one people would stay
Meaford.
at. Yeah, that's the one.
Meaford. Yeah, it's an interesting area. It kind of comes to a focal point where, like, on the other side, you have, I guess, Sawbull and Southampton area, and then you have Blue Mountain and Collingwood, and it kind of reaches to a point in Owen Sound. And, you know, they have good infrastructure. They have schools there. They have huge hospitals there. They have government work there. So it's got a pretty strong economy.
Yeah, big hospital, and technically can function as a port where it is on the water there. So, in the biggest city in that area by far. Like, I don't think there's anything within 100 kilometers that matches its size. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe so.
No, and the rent rolls there are pretty fair. You know, I would say they're pretty comparable to some other, you know, tier 2 cities that are just outside of the GTA. You know, for a 2-bedroom up there, I'm getting like $1,650 or $1,700 for a non-furnished, but renovated 2-bedroom.
That's crazy. Now, would you have parking with that?
Some of them do have parking, some of them don't. The one thing that's a little bit odd up there is there's some very different lots. You know, some of them are completely paved all around. Some of them have no parking. Some of them go almost right up to the sidewalk, which is very weird. And I would say a lot of stuff up there very similar to Hamilton. There's a lot of you know, illegal units and different things like that. So, you know, the zoning hasn't been enforced like crazy up there, I would say, over the past, you know, 15, 20 years, but it's an old town. You know, most of the houses there are from the 1800s.
Yeah, it's got a lot of character, you know, just having driven down the random streets that I've driven down going through. I've definitely been impressed. And then obviously John Kepler, if you're familiar with that name, he's been on the show a couple of times and he's heavily invested up there. Have you guys crossed paths at all?
We actually just crossed paths this week. Yeah, he's like the king of Owen Sound, but you know what? He got in there, I'd say, before the boom, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Oh, yeah. And when you look at market trends and market prices there, you know, he must have made a small fortune. I consider Owen Sound like the diamond in the rough. When you look in all these groups of other real estate investors and things like that, they talk about every other city, but never Owen Sound.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a fan for sure. And, you know, never pulled the trigger on it. Although I did make an acquisition up that way not too long ago for something else. So, you know, I'm a big fan of the area and I've been going up there for a long time. Southampton, Sawbull Beach, Oliphant, if you're familiar with that area as well. So let's talk about one of these deals, either the triplex or the fourplex. Do you mind breaking down kind of how those numbers work?
Yeah. So I just picked up a triplex there for $540. Gross rents currently, I couldn't get it unoccupied, unfortunately. So gross rents are $3,400 a month.
Okay.
Two out of the 3 units are already renovated. There's one that's not, which is the lower level 3-bedroom.
Okay.
And then, you know, I was just going to say my strategy up there is typically cosmetic renovations. I'm not looking for foundational or structural work.
Yeah. So with this one, what would you put into it?
I'm probably going to put in 60 to 65 on it. You know, there's a dirt driveway, which I'm going to pave.
Okay.
There's some exterior brickwork, which, you know, doesn't look great. So I'm probably going to put some siding on that. And then, you know, the lower unit will probably need a $30K makeover.
Okay. So is the 65 covers all that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're in for about 605 if you do all that. What do you figure would you go back and try and get a revaluation on it, refinance it at that point?
Yeah, exactly. So the plans to BRRRR the property, you know, I think ARV on it will be around 750 to 800. That was also from a distressed seller. And it was an on-market deal, which was good. So, you know, in return for a quick closing and some other concessions, I was able to get a pretty good deal on the buy.
Yeah, that doesn't sound bad at all. Like those numbers worked okay. I guess that's what you're getting at with the 4.5 cap when you buy. You know, you still have upward potential, but you're starting from there. Whereas in other markets, people are starting at like a 2 cap or something like that because the rents are so low relative to what they're paying. So you're just starting basically what you're getting at, it seems, is that you're just starting from a better point.
Yeah, which is okay. Like, the property can hold itself, while I work on turning tenants and trying to kind of
Right.
renovate and get, rents up to market, which is good. Realistically, I'll probably BRRRR and do most of the renovations, things like that, early spring. I have some other projects that are going on in the meantime, but, tenants are good. It's a stable property. And, it was a great buy.
What do you figure you'll get the rents to?
I think I can get the rents just over 4K.
Okay. So let's call it 4,000 and just run through some rough numbers here. What will your taxes be?
Property taxes are about 3,800.
3,800, and then insurance on something like that.
I think about 220, 225.
So that's about 2,700 a year. Maintenance, older house, would you budget a bit more than 5% or?
Yeah. So what's interesting about it is, yeah, I would say, yeah, you could probably do 5 or 6%. Structurally, I was very impressed with it. It was compared to what I'm used to seeing in Hamilton and areas like that, it was much better upkept.
And not to get tangent, but so is this a legal triplex, or did somebody just do this at one point and the city doesn't push back on it?
No, so it's a legal triplex. Someone did the conversion in the early 80s, and it's got all appropriate zoning and everything like that.
Nice. Okay. Utilities wise, are things separated, or are you paying the water for the building?
Yeah. So water, the tanks are rented, so that'll be on me. There is a common panel for a common area, which I'd be paying as well. And then each unit is separate meters.
What about heat?
Yeah. Heat's on me as well.
Okay. So is it a boiler, like natural gas?
Yeah, it's natural gas. I'd suspect it's around 150 a month.
Forced air or boiler?
Forced air.
Okay, so you have air conditioning for the units in the summer as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we there? So 150 then times 12 plus you've got water probably at 150 a month too, would you say, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That times 12, and then you're going to have some electric, like $50 a month?
Yeah, it's pretty low with the common area.
So I'm getting about 4,200 for the year on that. Management, are you paying a management company?
No, I self-manage.
Okay. So again, not to get tangent, but we're on the topic. You're far away. How did you pull that together?
Yeah. So I'm in Collingwood a lot and Blue Mountain a lot. I also know some people that are in Owen Sound, which helped me out with doing X, Y, and Z. So, it's okay. And as I said, my schedule is pretty flexible with work, which is obviously very accommodating. So I spent a lot of time in Collingwood. So for me to go from Collingwood to Owen Sound, it's really only a half an hour drive.
Okay. Only a half hour? That's it?
Yeah, a half hour, 40 minutes at most.
Oh man. Maybe I'll go up there this winter. That's not bad. Although from Sauble area, it's more like an hour probably. Maybe even further actually. Okay. So, no management, landscaping, and snow removal. Are you responsible for that?
Yeah, snow removal's $400 for the season. Landscaping, the lower level tenant was pretty much doing that, but there's really not much.
Okay, so just nothing for landscaping.
No, there's almost no front lawn there, so there's no grass to cut or anything like that, which is nice. Okay,
so I've got just a $500 miscellaneous allowance there. So at a $750,000 value, you're a 4.47 cap rate. And if you got 80%, you're basically in for zero. You got like $5,000 in the deal. Are you getting bank financing still?
Yeah, I'll get conventional financing.
Okay.
So there's about $50 of monthly revenue from the coin op. So there's a coin op laundry, which is segregated in a separate building, which is attached to the house. But the interesting thing is there's a quadplex beside it and they have no in-suite laundry. So they use it as well. So it doesn't bring much, it brings about $50 a month.
That's all right. That's a little cash on the side.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt. Okay, so let's assume you're getting around 2.2% at that point, 600 grand, 30-year AM. So you're gonna have like $560 of cash flow. It looks when you're all said and done there. And obviously there's more upward potential. Now, if you didn't get the rents up, then it looks like you're more at a break even, which is still not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And I'm okay. The cash flow, I take a kind of hybrid approach to it. Like a lot of people are just specific cash flow investors. I like a combination of appreciation and cash flow. So, when you look at my portfolio balance and the asset classes, and, some are in markets where I'm going for more break even and just appreciation. And there's some obviously where I'm trying to cash flow as well. But, Owen Sound Play is definitely trying to increase rents and has some positive cash flow on it.
It's going to have the same fate as other markets too. Like wherever the rents are going, and cities like Kitchener, London, eventually that effect trickles out and will affect those, because people leave those cities and they go, to places like Owen Sound because they think they can get a better deal. So I think cash flow, as long as you've got it to start, generally what we've been seeing is it'll continue and improve if you're patient. So I think the key is just not losing. You don't want to be in a position where if there's a little correction that you're not going to lose, say if there's like a 20% cut in your rents. But I guess for somebody like yourself, you look at it as a portfolio thing. Like you're going to have some places that cash flow better, some that just moderate, and they all kind of balance each other out.
Yeah, it's interesting for me too. So like when I look at my whole portfolio and call it my net income per month, there's a couple other streams that I pull from that are outside of real estate as well. There's some private equity things I'm doing and some other businesses I've invested in as well too. So I kind of look at the whole portfolio, obviously a siloed businesses, but, I take a holistic approach of kind of combining everything. But, my real cash cow, I think, is going to be the Blue Mountain property, which is where I plan on kind of doing a luxury Airbnb.
Yeah. Tell me about that. I was going to ask, do you have any vacation rentals in your portfolio?
So this one will be the first, and I got super, super lucky on this. So there's a plot of land in Collingwood that I've always seen, and it was owned by this big developer up there. And, it's basically an apple orchard, and it's across from the village in Blue Mountain, if you know where that is. And he finally decided to let it go and sold it to another developer. So they are building 70 or 80, luxury homes, 3,000 to 6,000 square feet. So, the second I saw that land go, I was on the developer for like a year and a half, just waiting for them to release, phase one of it. And I was fortunate enough to be able to squeeze my way into the friends and family round on the first go at it. Now, what's interesting about it is I picked up a 3,200 square foot, 2-story luxury bungalow with a 1,600 square foot basement with 9-foot ceilings on it, which I'm going to make a duplex. Call it an illegal duplex on it, but I'm going to use the basement for myself. And the craziest thing about it is, there's this road in Collingwood called Highway 11, and it basically splits the town of Blue Mountain from the town of Collingwood. And where the property lies just happens to be on the right side of the road on Highway 11, which falls into the town of Blue Mountain. So about 6 months ago, the town of Collingwood made an announcement that they're stopping all development for the next 36 months because they have water main issues and not enough infrastructure to service new properties. So all of a sudden, this place that I got for 3,600 square feet for 1.1 million, all of a sudden just jumped up like crazy. And I was getting people, coming in and trying to buy, basically my APS on it for $500K premium, $600K premium 4 weeks after I got it.
Oh, wow. Now, the only issue I see there, and I'm curious if you can shed some light, is the short-term rental requirements and restrictions, because they have licensing in Blue Mountain, right?
So they have licensing for short-term rentals in a specific area called Tyrolean. But the interesting thing is they relaxed rules on Airbnb. So, if you look 2 or 3 years ago in Blue Mountain, you see maybe 1 or 2 units. Now you look on there, you're going to see 400 or 500. So, it's completely exploded.
I feel like you could just live off of just what you make from that property. Like you could probably actually live a pretty luxurious life just from what you could make from that property on Airbnb.
So I have a friend who's, similar situation, bought a different development around the same square footage home right across from the village. And he's getting almost 2,000 a night, and he's booked up almost every single day of the entire winter. So he's making 50, 60 grand a month on short-term rentals from Airbnb it.
And is what total cost to operate that, or what, like 5 to 10?
Yeah, I'd say with everything, it's probably 8,000 to 9,000 a month, with carrying costs and, your cleaning fees and things like that.
Right. Well, I mean, most people who I talk to about Airbnb, they just kind of give me the price they make per night, and then they don't even include the cleaning. They're just like, well, cleaning is an add-on. The client pays for it. They don't even factor it in. Um, but yeah, of course, that's one of the expenses that are part of it for sure. But just the power of that, like the power of what you could do with Airbnb is just insane. Like it's like cash flow on steroids.
Yeah, it's like a force multiplier. When people talk about being able to scale a real estate portfolio and create cash flow, like something like that can make a huge impact on being able to scale.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the cool thing about Collingwood is, so I was actually sponsored by Blue Mountain and IntraWest, the company that used to own Blue Mountain for 10 years. So I got a lot of inside knowledge on basically the thought process. So Blue Mountain 5 or 6 years ago, when winter started to change and, ski season wasn't as long, they made a strategic shift to be able to have more people come up in the summer and the off season. And the off season is just as busy now as the on season for skiing. So the rates that you see in the winter are almost comparable. They're slightly suppressed in the summer, but you can still get anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a night, in the spring and summer.
Yeah, because they have the mountain bike culture there too, right? People use the mountain for mountain biking.
So they actually, because of COVID, just got rid of that. However, there's beaches there. There's tons of golfing.
Yeah.
There's the spas. It's kind of like a nice little retreat for people. And I would say, a lot of people that go to vacation that don't necessarily go to, other places where they have cottages. Blue Mountain's got a really strong rental market, so people can go there that don't have properties to go to.
Yeah, I mean, just the beach right there. That's a huge thing, right? Everybody wants to get to these beach towns. We have such nice beaches in Ontario too. I always say this, but I think we, like people who live here, just take it for granted because we're from here. We don't realize, what we're kind of overlooking. So I definitely see the potential in a place like Blue Mountain in the summer. No mountain biking. Like what the heck? How does that stop the spread of anything?
You know what? I think it came down for them. They were having liability issues, and it was an excuse for them to basically just cut off the business. I don't think it was a profitable operation for them. Oh, no. And I think, it was kind of their excuse to finally shut it down. It was a loss leader, basically.
Fair enough. Okay. I hear you. Yeah, to get people up there, but it wasn't the profit center.
Exactly.
How much did their winter shorten? I mean, it may be isolated these last 6 years, but I mean, of course, we've had some wonky winters lately. What have you seen?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. It's like I remember being as a kid and going up there in like November and skiing, and then come March, almost all the snow was gone. Now it's the complete opposite. The past couple of years, Blue's been open till Easter every year. So, but who knows? Like they're closed right now, right? They opened a couple of weeks ago and then reclosed again. But the most powerful thing about, Blue Mountain in that area is most people who book are booking 4 or 5 months out. So no matter what the ski conditions are, they're still typically booked way in advance and are committed to going.
How much would that suck if you booked for December 14th and there's no snow? Like right now there's, what is it? It was like 10 degrees yesterday outside. So I don't know if it's cold
hard
up there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's an expensive sport, to be in, right? You want to bring kids up there, get a hotel for the weekend or Airbnb, food, lift tickets and everything. You're probably looking at like $2 to $3 to $4 grand, maybe.
Yeah. And
lift tickets are $150.
So in Airbnbers, like they don't allow cancellations, right? Like there's, you can't cancel the day before for 50% refund because the conditions are bad. Correct.
Yeah, like I guess it's up to you to kind of choose what parameters that you want to have on it. But for something like that, yeah, you're going to do that for sure because, you can always fill it if they cancel before. So you don't ever want someone canceling that last minute. And but, things will happen. People will try to do that for sure.
Yeah. Like hotels, like would they have similar policy? Like you can't cancel or are they going to have like 24-hour cancellation?
It's a good question. I don't know. I haven't stayed in a hotel up there in a long time, but they're big brand names, so they're probably pretty flexible, but I know the ones in the village are pretty strict on that.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it's great. It's just the off chance that you have like a freak week or two in the winter where all of a sudden it gets warm and no one's going to be skiing. But if they had a good base of snow this year, they probably wouldn't have shut down for this week. It would have just been a couple of crappy days of skiing until it got cold again. So who knows? Either way, I think it's a ton of potential. I'm excited to see the kind of numbers you get there.
Yeah, me too. I'm really, really looking forward to that one being built. I'm hoping it'll be operational for fall next year, so it'll be good to go for the winter season.
Okay, so that is the active plan. You think that you might be able to close on it in the fall of 2022?
Yeah, that's the hope, that they'll be finished. We're already 6 months delayed on construction as per usual. So that's the hope right now. But, as soon as I close on it, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplex the basement, make a nice 2-bedroom unit for myself down there that I can go up on weekends and enjoy. And then Airbnb the top unit out. I'll do as much soundproofing as possible, but I'm sure I'll have to put up with some stuff.
Well, yeah, if is it unfinished basement when you get it?
Yeah, so I chose to get it unfinished so I can finish it myself.
Yeah, man, you can soundproof the crap out of that and make it good, I'm sure. Especially if you're willing to spend a bit more. The only thing that you won't be able to do is get them to put that soundproof layer on the top side of the deck. But there's still lots you could do.
Yeah, there's always a sacrifice you have to make. But you know what? I think the hope is that one day when I got a family or something that down the road, I'll probably just use the whole place for myself.
That's so cool, though. So you're just going to leave that empty. It'll be your storage. You'll have your snowboard there or whatever, and you can just go up whenever you want and have a free place to stay. The upstairs will take care of any of the costs of the downstairs, well, the whole place, right?
Yeah, I'm essentially house hacking it. House hacking it as call it a chalet or a cottage.
Love it. That's so cool, man. All right. So anything else you wanted to cover today that we didn't talk about, or something you would want to share?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll talk a little bit about, where I kind of see my business going for the next year. So, I was super fortunate. I had an article come up recently with Toronto Life and, got crazy amount of feedback with that. I had almost 100 investor inquiries on my website. So I think it's, driving a new chapter of growth for my business. And when we look at, transitioning out of the corporate life over the next 12 to 24 months, I really want to kind of create a bigger infrastructure where I can start bringing in some partners. One thing I always find interesting is I feel like a lot of people in our community are always chasing the same money, but there's so much other investment money and things like that from Toronto and in the city, and people that aren't necessarily, sophisticated real estate investors that want to invest in real estate. And I think that's kind of a main focus of my business, of going after, and, trying to scale it larger. A big goal of mine is to start getting into some LP GP agreements and, start getting bigger buildings and, bringing multiple partners on and things like that. So, I'm really excited, I guess, for 2022. I think it's going to be a big year.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. Now, are you planning on doing like a proper exempt market product with a prospectus and all that when you do the LPGP thing? Or would this just be kind of low key?
So I'm actually considering both. I've been fortunate enough to have some friends that are investment bankers that, specifically do that kind of stuff. So there's some guidance there. I'm looking at both. It's a pretty big cost, a pretty big avenue to go down to doing it, the proper way. But, that being said, if you can pull it off, there's huge upside.
Yeah, I've heard, I've talked about this with a guy quite a bit because I was considering doing it myself a while back, right before the first lockdown. That was kind of when I was gearing up. I'm like, okay, what's the product going to be? I'm going to do this. He was saying kind of in a better case scenario, I'd probably be looking at about 40 grand in the first year to get things up and running and, kind of doing it on the cheaper side. And then of course it depends. There's like so many different ways you could do it. How big do you want to go and what kind of reporting requirements there would be? But just think of how much it unlimits you. And then of course you're going to pay for your capital raise too, right? Like people who do the raising, they might, you could be paying 6-7% on actual capital raise. So a lot to consider, but I guess it's the bigger picture. Like, what do you see you can do with it? And if it makes sense, then you obviously would pull the trigger on it. But in your case, do you see enough inventory in kind of your line of sight, the type of properties you're looking for? Like, is it an Owen Sound expansion or is it, elsewhere in Ontario?
Yeah, so I would say, it'd be the same thing where it's kind of tier 2 and tier 3 markets. I find that there's a nice, obviously it's competitive in any asset class in any market you're in, but I find, if you're in, smaller multifamily buildings, call it the 10 to 30 unit range. You're not competing with the big boys. Anything over that, you start competing with, Capreed and Starlight and all those other guys. But, one thing I found really fortunate, it was kind of an eye-opening experience for me, was Daniel Drimmer, who founded Starlight and actually owns it. I reached out to him cold a year and a half ago, and he actually gave me 2 hours of his time just to kind of walk me through how he built Starlight and how he built his business. And it was super kind for someone like that to just book time with me and give me the attention. But it was cool. So he basically talked about, how they started with their buildings and how he basically took a risk with his family. They created that corporate structure. They found the right bankers and things like that to be able to, put the deals together. And it's one of those things again, too, where it's, not necessarily what you're going to do. You just got to put the team together, and all the other experts are pretty much going to, bring it all happen. But every good deal needs someone to be able to pitch the dream and to pitch the whole concept of it. And I think that's where, I want to be able to think bigger in real estate and be able to kind of bring that to people that, want to invest in real estate, want to invest in bigger projects, but don't necessarily have the expertise to do so.
I definitely hear you with the big picture thing. Like I think very big picture, but I'm also pretty good at the minutia, which is actually, I think, to my detriment, because I'm perfectly capable of doing some of the administrative side too, and the bookkeeping and whatever, which is not where I should be spending my time. I feel like for me, my highest and best use would be focusing on the dream, focusing on the vision, and kind of delegating the rest. So it's inspiring to hear your story and inspiring to hear you talk about that, because I'm right there with you. I think that's an incredible value. So any parting wisdom before we wrap up?
No, my parting wisdom. So after listening to all your episodes over the past 2 years and kind of reflecting on them, I find it hilarious. I would say some of the predictions from a macroeconomic standpoint that you have made on the podcast were so accurate over the past 12 and 24 months compared to, what the government and everybody else is saying.
Funny how that works.
It's hilarious. Like if you go back and you listen to all your episodes, I would say 80 to 90% of your predictions were 100% accurate. So I have a real big respect for that.
Appreciate you saying that. Well, the key difference is no conflict of interest. I'm not trying to sugarcoat things. Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, I don't want to be a black pill. That's why often people might notice I just don't say much, because if you're going to ask me what I think, I'm going to tell you, and then we're all going to feel a little gross about it. So I try and spin it. Like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to make it profitable? How are we going to use it for ourselves? But yeah, man, no question. It's kind of a bummer sometimes, seeing what they're doing here. You brought it up earlier. You saw, our housing crisis isn't going anywhere. I agree. But I mean, man, there's a lot of similarities between, 1920s Germany and the inflation situation that was happening there. And it's every fiat currency's destiny to eventually collapse into nothing. So, where are we on that time horizon? And one thing for sure, I definitely want to be owning real estate when it happens. I want to be owning things that are of value, not cash. And for me, not Bitcoin, but I know not everybody will agree. That'd be better than cash.
Yeah, I think everybody has their own kind of avenue that they want to go down, but I'm on the exact same page with you. I find, of a personal opinion of mine, that society's getting a little bit weak, and that people that have certain opinions can't express those opinions, when a lot of the times the opinions are maybe the fact or the reality, but they're being silenced for whatever reason. But people just need to be realists with it. Things are happening, things are changing very quick, and a lot of people just don't want to accept the reality of where we are right now, but they need to.
Yeah, there's a lot of apathy. People just they want to do their thing. I can't be bothered with that. I got a family to think about, work to think about, or I'm growing my business, and they don't say anything. But yeah, we got to get realistic. Like, I think at the end of the day, there's no sugarcoating it. It's not right. It's not all right to censor people and to shame people for saying what they think. Where we're going, I agree with you. We've gone weak, and it's going to take a lot of strength to get us back to some level of sanity. And I don't know what you're going to do with that. I mean, some people who are on a similar page, they say, hey, you know what? We're going to get it while the getting's good. The inflation is an opportunity. And it is. Look how much money people have made in the last little bit. Yeah, it's sad in the way for a lot of people, but if you're aware of it, do something like what you're doing and turn it into an opportunity.
Well, that's the thing, right? We live in a capitalist society. If opportunity presents itself, if you don't capitalize on that opportunity, someone else will. And that's the beautiful thing about being in a free society. You have the option to capitalize on it. It seems like, things are going in a different way where people don't want to capitalize on it for whatever reason anymore. But, those who do will get ahead, and those who are destined to go a different path will go a different path.
Yeah, exactly. Jack, where do people find you, reach you, follow you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Bernstone Capital. My website's www.bernstonecapital.com. And, you can reach out on Facebook or LinkedIn, Jack Bernstein.
Okay, I thought it was like you had me questioning. Did I say your name wrong at the beginning? Bernstein.
No, it's Bernstein. So yeah, I get that sometimes. So there's a very famous tax lawyer in Canada named Jack Bernstein. So if you Google Jack Bernstein, it comes up with everything. And if you type in Bernstein, this guy's got hundreds and hundreds of articles. So yeah. Bernstone means Bernstein. It's the same thing. Okay. It was just a little bit more unique and, kind of an easier way for people to find it and search it up.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I compete with the motorcycle guy. There's like a motorcycle drag racer guy that if you search Andrew Hines, and we're like the same age nice. Too. Yeah, so nice. I don't think there's much confusion there though. So, anyways, man, it's been real nice chatting with you. And who knows, maybe if you're going up to Blue sometime in this winter, maybe we can meet up there. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.